It's my pleasure to introduce Mayor John Cooper, who was born in Nashville and raised in Shelbyville, and is the 9th mayor of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. Since taking office in 2019, he's achieved some historic results for residents, including making Nashville teachers some of the highest paid in the state. The financial turnaround Mayor Cooper helped engineer has enabled neighborhood investment in schools, transportation, and parks. And noteworthy, his latest capital spending plan creates 60-plus acres of green space, including a city park in one of the last districts that still has none. After adopting a metro transportation plan, Nashville now has a local Department of Transportation dedicated to pedestrian safety, neighborhood infrastructure, and better traffic management. The city has more than tripled its affordable housing resources, including a first-time ever Metro Housing Division, and Nashville is co-leading a private-public partnership to construct 100 megawatt of local utility-scale solar power. Meanwhile, Oracle Corporation is investing $1.2 million in creating 8,500 jobs in Nashville. John Cooper served as an at-large member of Metro Council from 2015 to 2019 and brings more than 30 years of experience in business, finance, real estate to this leadership. He is the founder of the Heritage at Brentwood, a continuing care senior living community, and Happy Retails, a volunteer-directed pet products retail store where all profits benefit animal rescue. Mayor Cooper holds a bachelor's degree from Harvard University and a master's degree in business from Vanderbilt University. He and his wife, former constitutional law professor Fitzgerald Cooper, have 3 teenage sons and 3 dogs. They attend Christ Church Cathedral. Please join me in welcoming Mayor John Cooper.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Christine and Lauren. There's some celebrities here. To a mayor, they are all celebrities, for sure. We have 2 great council members, Bob Mendez and the great Sharon Hurd. We've got Erica Gilmore here, and our assessor, Vivian Wilhoit. We have our register, Karen Johnson, here. We have Judge Kelvin Jones. And 2 hardworking members of our legislature who every day I appreciate how hard their job is more and more, Harold Love and Vincent Dixie. We also have our past finance director, Kevin Crumbo. You'll be hearing more about this in a few moments. But it is great to see everybody in person. Wow, 2 years. Now, this is the 2nd anniversary of this city facing a series of unprecedented challenges. We know the list. Tornado, derecho, financial emergency, civil unrest, bombing, of course, COVID. And it was 2 years ago today that Nashville experienced its first COVID case. Now, in these challenges, and in others, we have done well as a city. And there are 2 reports out in the last few weeks that emphasize how Nashville is the envy of essentially all other cities in the United States. The first, Wells Fargo Economics, reports that Nashville's return to pre-COVID form is no small feat. This metro economy was disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, it reports. But by many measures, we have come back and already surpassed our pre-pandemic levels. Now, the report says that Nashville's pragmatic approach to managing the pandemic prevented the kind of economic damage that you would have expected and seen elsewhere. The Music City economy, Wells Fargo reports, now turns it up to 11. Now, the pragmatic management of COVID also saved lives. Statistically, as Vanderbilt predicted and experience confirmed, we saved 1,000 lives here. Lives that didn't have to be lost elsewhere, but we saved here. And helped by Dr. Jahanger and Dr. Hildreth and Dr. Schaffner at Vanderbilt and others, Nashville's response was a successful national model during the biggest health challenge that all and any U.S. cities have really ever faced. Now, the second report that I want to highlight is the Urban Land Institute's annual evaluation of cities and their prospects. And in that, Nashville is at the top of the supernova category among all American cities. Now, most super-regional cities are doing well, but Nashville, with its healthcare, universities, growing tech sector, hospitality, and music, has all the building blocks for the greatest 21st century success. Now, by the way, being a state capital would have been very important to us 50 years ago, and it is useful. But government employment is not driving Nashville's success. In fact, government employment as a sector is down. But now we're at a time where our city faces a choice. We can grow with investment and create a better quality of life and incomes for all our people, but take advantage of this moment. Or we can simply just grow. And if we avoid the hard management and execution decisions that come with growth, we will have a less good quality of life. And that would be to waste the opportunity that generations of my and your forebears worked to create here. Now, while all of us have been occupied with COVID, preoccupied with COVID, at Metro we've been busy, one, repairing the finances of the city, without which nothing can be accomplished, and two, building out a team to meet this great challenge of our moment to build a deeply professional team with national level capability that can execute on making Nashville the best place to live in America. And in 2 years, during COVID, we've made a generation of progress on a series of problems, clearly not solving them all, but we have built a platform for creating deep future success. Now, I want to talk today about some of these team members, highlight who they are and what we've gotten done and how we're going to get on with being the best city in the country as we assemble a team to create our very best future. And we're not going to let an era famous for division and dysfunction deter us from realizing our city's great future. In transportation, housing, finance, education, public safety, there has been a generation of progress from 2 years ago. And there are other areas too, but I'll focus on these today. Now, first, transportation. When I ran for mayor, I pledged to deliver a transportation plan by the end of my first year. And not only did we do that, we followed through on another commitment by creating Nashville's first ever local Department of Transportation. Now, Diana Alicorn is our first Director of Transportation, working to implement a Vision Zero plan to reduce pedestrian fatalities, deliver sidewalk projects faster and cheaper, stand up a traffic management center, and design the next generation of Nashville's transportation infrastructure to add capacity to our system and connect our neighborhoods. Now, having a plan has already allowed Metro to secure an additional $44 million in state and federal transportation grant dollars. And this includes full funding for a badly needed traffic management center, which will allow a central hub to reduce traffic congestions by using advanced traffic signal control technology and sensor-based traffic monitoring technologies. It's amazing we did not have that before. Now, NDOT is focused on building out the Metro Transportation Plan and implementing thousands of transportation improvements across Nashville's neighborhoods, including traffic calming and other safety upgrades to eliminate and reduce pedestrian deaths. Now, NDOT is also tasked with building or repairing 75 miles of priority sidewalk with 50% more efficiency and 20% less cost. Now, professional NDOT has already created a plan to deliver 4 backlog sidewalk projects roughly a year ahead of schedule and at less than half the original estimated cost. And also today, I want to announce that Bob Murphy, a friend and colleague of many of us in this room, is joining our transportation efforts. It was just too exciting for him to stay retired. And he's going to bring a lifetime of experience in creating actual solutions for us here in Nashville. Now, next, I want to introduce to you Angie Hubbard, who is Metro's Housing Director in our newly created Division of Housing. As a candidate, I pledged not only to devote significantly more resources to affordable housing, but to bring greater expertise to the work and create an office outside of the mayor's office to focus on this key issue. And for the first time, Metro has a dedicated division of housing embedded in Metro Planning. Now, planning is overseeing $5.5 billion in construction permits this year, and it may be our most influential public agency, so having housing combined with planning is a strong combination. Now, since taking office, we've invested over $100 million in affordable housing. Now, that contrasts to what had been $10 million a year commitment in the past to show you the increased level of priority. And Angie is here working to spend those funds in the most cost-effective way and implement new policy tools that came out of our Affordable Housing Task Force report. Angie's vision statement is every Nashvilleian has housing security, and we're putting in the work to get there. And that's with a new participation agreement, initiative to incentivize builders to create more affordable housing, a $20 million catalyst fund to preserve at-risk housing units, a new pilot initiative to promote mixed income projects, a project to create affordable housing on Metro-owned land, the first in Councilwoman Toombs' district on 24th Avenue North. And finally, for the first time ever, our housing division will inventory every single income-restricted unit in Nashville in one central database, including MDHA's units. Now, the Wells Fargo report shows that Nashville is building right now 17,000 multifamily units. That's 12% of our total multifamily supply being built right now. That is an amazing number and an amazing opportunity for our city. So it is Angie's work to make sure that this growth in new units helps solve our affordability challenge. Now that brings me to the next key member of the Metro team, Dr. Troy White, Executive Director of MDHA. Earlier this year, we used $15 million in ART dollars to unlock infrastructure and accelerate the construction of 1,100 units at Envision Casey in East Nashville. Now, given his previous experience as COO of the Charlotte Housing Authority and then COO of the Atlanta Housing Authority, Dr. White has the expertise necessary to oversee large-scale capital plans, which is the work of MDHA, and MDHA serves 30,000 people. Now, Dr. White and Angie Hubbard mean that Nashville now has a very strong team to implement effective housing solutions. Now, as we think about the growth of Nashville, it is critical that we harvest the growth to provide opportunities for every community in Nashville. And small business creation is a key part of that puzzle. Now, you've previously heard from Courtney Pogue on making economic development work for all of us, and then let me introduce another important part of that effort. I'm grateful to Daryl Freeman for stepping up in a volunteer capacity to lead our effort to put a business incubator and development center at Fisk University's Burris Hall. 3 weeks ago, we were at Fisk signing a resolution to set this 90-day process in motion, and the sponsor for this is our own Sharon Hurt. I want to express my gratitude to her. A business incubator at Fisk will drive the creation of black wealth and small business formation in Nashville and further cement Jefferson Street as a corridor of innovation, while also connecting students from Fisk and TSU to jobs at Oracle and other businesses downtown. And I expect Meharry to play a similar role in advancing business development and employment in the life sciences. Now, Daryl was a mentor and investor to the founders of Slim and Huskies, and I know we both believe that the next Zircon and the next Slim and Huskies will come out of the incubation center at Fisk. Now, any business person knows that keeping a careful eye on the books is critical, and that rings true for government too. And in 2.5 years, we've righted our ship financially. I'm thankful to Kevin Crumbo, our wonderful previous finance director, who stayed a year longer than he committed to. And now to Kelly Flannery, our current finance director. I'm grateful for their expertise, and I'm grateful to Kelly. Now, she was the past CFO of Charlotte and the deputy CFO of Chicago. Now, when I took office, I was given a letter from the state controller saying that they felt they were going to have to maybe come in and take over our city finances. We had really no cash reserves, no balanced budget, The state wasn't going to let us borrow forward. We were selling tax receivables to third parties and still having to collect them at a loss. You may call it a discount. I would call it a loss. We were pretending to balance the operating books by expecting to sell public property in the future. And we took action to structurally balance our budget. And then just a few months later, we navigated through a crisis response budget during the pandemic. What does crisis response budget in the pandemic mean? That means we were several $100 million short, and we had no savings account to help, and COVID was creating an uncertain future. Now the city boasts improved metrics for liquidity, operations, long-term obligations, and we are investing in our future with historic investments in education, parks, and transportation improvements. And we also have the third lowest tax rate in our history and the lowest of the big cities in Tennessee, including lower than Murfreesboro, which also has a higher sales tax. They too have schools to build and a police department to fund. So I campaigned to bring financial stewardship to city government, and I am proud of the commitments that we have kept. Our improved financial situation is allowing us to make the necessary investments that we need to make, like making Nashville's teachers the best paid in the state. And we're investing in our new school facilities around the county, including the new James Lawson High School in Bellevue. We also tackled the digital divide, with all Metro students now having a quality laptop, internet connectivity, and training. 10 years of progress in the digital divide was made during the pandemic. Now, our finances are back on track, which means balanced budgets and reserves strong enough to weather the next crisis. And that financial resiliency leads me to the next person I want to highlight, Kendra Abkowitz, our Chief Sustainability and Resilience Officer. A Vanderbilt PhD with deep policy experience, Kendra is working closely with Metro departments and across the community to implement our vision for future livability. Reducing greenhouse gases, increasing energy efficiency in buildings, promoting the use of EVs, and furthering access to EV infrastructure and multimodal infrastructure, restoring the tree canopy, and more. Now, one of our sustainability accomplishments that I'm very proud of is establishing a 600-acre solar farm outside of Tullahoma, Tennessee, that will power 1/3 of Metro's energy needs. We also established an upgrade building code that will improve energy efficiency and reduce Metro's carbon footprint and do our part to reach our goal to reduce Nashville's greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. Now, I also want to talk about safety in Nashville. A growing city must be a safe city, and we are in capable hands with Chief Drake. And I'm proud also of the work our community safety team has done, Dia Cirillo, Ron Johnson, and John Bunton. Now, homicide rates in neighboring cities went up last year, but Nashville's went down. In fact, overall crime is down 10%. Not enough, but that is a significant number compared to other cities. Now, we're also making fewer arrests, but that's thanks in large part to our Partners in Care emergency co-response pilot. And that's where a police officer and a mental health clinician responds to an emergency calls together. And 96% of the 911 calls that the co-response team handles, has led to help for people in crisis and not jail time. Building on that success, we are now expanding Partners in Care and also developing a non-police response program. Now, a key member of our community safety team is Ron Johnson, our first community safety coordinator, the first in Metro government. Ron, together with the Center for Nonprofit Management, has brought together over 40 grassroots nonprofits to provide grants, weekly training, conversations. We have partnered with 21 local nonprofits working on neighborhood violence interruption since March 2021, with much more to come. Now, we fully staffed our E911 center and implemented body cameras while lowering costs. We've invested in our police officers, including pay raises and a 9th precinct for Southeast Nashville. Now, next, I want to introduce you to Jay Survey, who is serving as interim director of the Metro Homeless Impact Division. Every city must confront homelessness, and this is especially true in cities like Nashville, where housing is becoming increasingly expensive. In 2021, we helped nearly 2,000 unhoused people get into stable housing, and that work continues. We're beginning construction on a permanent supportive housing community in the coming months. As for homeless encampments, our goal is to provide supportive housing for the people currently living in places like Brookmead Park, followed by restoring the park. Now, one of the biggest quality of life challenges in our city in the past few months, I think we will all agree, certainly my wife would perhaps put this first, has been trash collection. John Honeysucker has been leading the Waste Services Division and confronting the challenges posed by a contractor in bankruptcy. The bankruptcy of Red River, Metro's primary trash collection vendor since 2004, forced us to take some pretty extraordinary measures. Crews with Metro Waste Services have been working 12-hour shifts to cover for Red River's failures. And by aggressively fighting Red River in bankruptcy court, we were able to hire 2 new emergency vendors, Waste Management and Waste Pro, to take on routes and address delays. And thanks to the leadership of John Honeysucker and Scott Potter, the director of Metro Water Services, I think we have turned a corner. Red River is now cooperating with our emergency efforts, and Metro Waste Services will be able to assign routes as necessary to maintain proper trash collection going forward. Now, the last person I want to call attention to today is our Metro Legal Director, Wally Dietz. When I became mayor, I knew we needed the very best lawyer leading that department to help Metro, and we have Wally Dietz, whose expertise and steady tenacity has been key to issues like battling Red River over trash delays and fighting for our fair share of state education funding. And as you all know, there is no comfort like having the best lawyer in the room, and with Wally, we have that. There is so much good in Nashville. The challenges we've faced so far together have brought out the best in us, the best among us. As Nashville continues to grow, it will take a dedicated team of public servants, like many of those that I've highlighted today, collaborating with the private sector to make Nashville work for everyone in every neighborhood. And I, along with my team, are grateful to be doing this work alongside all of you. Thank you for the privilege of being here. There are many others whose important work I could and should highlight. There's a lot of great material here for future Rotary programs. As we are a city that works and works for everyone, have us back, and I'm pleased to spend some time indicating that a great city has to be successful in multiple areas at the same time, stewarded by competent and able leadership, and that goes way beyond me. That is the team. That is the team getting it done for all of us, and to each of them, I'm very grateful. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you for having me very much.